So, ladies and gentlemen, could I have a warm welcome, please, for Dr. Rossi Allah.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed the short film, and I want you to know that it's now becoming a full feature film, so it's going to be about 2 hours long. It's going to be expanded, and a lot of work. So, I think we agreed to have Q&A after the presentation of the film. And here I am for the Q&A. I also, before the Q&A, I wanted to say how grateful I am for the invitation to be here in the famous Rhode Island School of Design, and for the wonderful people that are here and have invited me, including, of course, your champion, Senator Janine Colkin, and Will Gregerson, and there he is. Thank you so much. Together with Lisa Diamond. Lisa Diamond, both of whom have been so kind to organize this, that we follow because of their creation of the Tri-State Climate Coalition. Thank you, thank you. So, I'm all yours. Do you have any questions? Yes. Can you identify yourself by name and where are you from?
Sure. Lauren Nidell from Gloucester, Rhode, Gloucester. And
can you give her the...
Yeah, so I was just wondering if there's an active, if one of these are active anywhere, and how and if it's working.
This one's working.
There you go.
There you go.
I was wondering if there was a working model, or one of these are active and producing and saving and, you know, taking in the carbon right now, and how it's working, or where, if there is a facility like this, where is it?
Definitely. In Silicon Valley, there is the SRI, Stanford Research Institute, 333 Ravenswood Avenue, in Menlo Park, California, around the corner from Facebook. It's a 63-acre technology campus, the most famous in Silicon Valley, where the internet was started. We have the plant that you see there is working, operating at SRI right now. So you are all invited. It takes some preparation. You cannot just show up there, but if you let me know and you're coming there, it's near San Francisco, about 25 minutes from San Francisco. You can come and see it, touch it, and see how it works. And actually now we are building a commercial model to sell CO2 for carbonated beverages. The classic carbonated beverages company is our client. So that shows that you can clean the atmosphere and produce money and jobs at the same time. This is not against the economy, this favors the economy. It just creates a cleaner economy, a cleaner world. Yes. Can you give him the...
Yeah.
Can you give your name and where you're from?
My name is Justin Boyan from Providence. I noticed that most of the uses of the captured carbon would then ultimately re-release the carbon into the atmosphere. So are there, is it a different kind of plant or a different technology that would need to be invented to actually bury the carbon or keep it from being re-released after it's then used?
You're called Kevin, right?
Justin.
Oh?
Justin.
Oh, Justin, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what. No, some of the applications don't release the carbon back. For example, plastics. polymers. If you use CO2 to produce plastic or polymers, using CO2 as a feedstock instead of using petroleum, let's say to make IKEA furniture. The IKEA furniture embodies the CO2 that came from air. And for as long as that furniture is being used, it's not going back to the atmosphere. That is why the technology and the movie are called carbon negative, because that technology has the capability of removing the CO2 and it doesn't go back. In some cases it goes back, but in others, as the one I just mentioned, and many others, for example, carbon fibers, never goes back. Or even if it's going to go back, it will take hundreds of years to go back, and then we have time to do other forms of recycling.
And are the power requirements to transform the CO2 into polymers, are those also low enough that it would still be profitable?
Yeah, I guess what Justin is saying is if you use fossil fuels to produce electricity to extract the CO2, you may be producing more CO2 than what you are removing. That was our first consideration, not to do that. So if you remember, during the film, which you can find in YouTube, or ask, I think Will, and he will send you a link. It says that we don't use electricity. Our source of power is low temperature heat. And that low temperature heat, in the case of the plant that we have operational in Silicon Valley, comes from a power plant. So that we clean the power plant emissions and we utilize for free the residual heat. We only need 85 degrees centigrades, that's what the film says. That's what makes this technology miraculous. Because this area uses very high heat, which is expensive and environmentally noxious. We use 85 degrees C heat, which is so low that it doesn't suffice to boil a cup of tea. So that you understand the revolution that this technology represents. It doesn't use electricity, it uses heat. And the heat is so low that it's easily found in industrial establishments such as any power plant or aluminum smelters, just about any industrial facilities producing heat, including, believe it or not, no, you have to believe it, nuclear plants or solar plants. So we can attach our system to a concentrated solar power plant or to a plant that produces electricity or heat, as you have here, using windmills. And that's the heat that we use to power our system. Very low heat, 85 C, as I said. Less heat than what you need to boil a cup of tea. Does it answer your question?
Well, I don't want to domineer the conversation here. I was more curious about the process of taking the carbon that you've already extracted with the 85-degree heat to remove it from the air, but now you've got that CO2, and to make it into a polymer or to make it into, I understand you could sort of bottle it up and sell it to a beverage company, but if you want to actually keep it from being re-released, how much extra energy would that take?
Right. No, you actually don't need a lot of energy for that. Because, in fact, most of the applications you can think of, for example, let's look at greenhouses. They're maybe intuitively the easiest one to understand. If you have a greenhouse, and you must have a lot of greenhouses in Rhode Island, you're producing fruits and vegetables under a structure. If you just put CO2 there, just put CO2, no energy, no electricity, no water, no nothing. Just put the CO2 that comes from one of our plants or units. It will increase the production of fruits and vegetables by 30 or 40%. And it has been done already successfully with tomatoes. The plant plants don't need any heat to use CO2, they don't need any electricity to use CO2, they just absorb CO2. So that's an example where you take the CO2 from the air, you give it to the plants, and you accelerate part of what the carbon cycle is right now, which is the vegetation that we have in the planet absorbing the CO2. But we take it in an industrial quantity and strength, because you have a lot of CO2 now that you have to bring down, and give it to the plants. The plants grow faster, and you don't need any energy for that. Is that clear? Any other question?
Dan has a question.
Hi there, my name is Dan Colcannon. I'm from Warwick.
What's your name?
Daniel Colcannon. I'm
Daniel?
from Warwick. I am Senator Janine's husband. My question is, what is the projection for further engineering of this type of technology? Generally, when a new technology comes into the world, first generation technology is effective, but it can be pricey, it can be esoteric in terms of what the requirements are to make it work. I guess my question is, in terms of future development, how much more cost reduction can you see in how these units are built over the next 5 to 10 years as you are able to continue to ramp up your engineering efforts in response to the market demand?
What's your first name again?
Daniel.
Oh, Daniel, yes. Okay, thanks for the question. There is a lot of improvement down the road. It took the Chinese somewhere around 10 years, and a lot of, actually, it took more than $1 billion from the clean development mechanism of the carbon market of the Kyoto Protocol, which was given to the Chinese, to decrease the cost of solar photovoltaic energy by 70 to 80%, which is why photovoltaic energy is now so widely distributed in the United States. The United States should be grateful to the Chinese for lowering the price of the technology. How did that happen? There is something called the Moore law, and it says essentially that as you double the capacity, you are decreasing seriously the cost. You know that because of the way you spoke. It's clear to me that you know that. So in our case, we are at the beginning of the cost curve, and the key thing, listen to this, is that you can make money right now by removing CO2 from air. So the process of cleaning the atmosphere, instead of costing money to the economy, improves the economy. Because you take the CO2 at the cost that is lower than what you can sell it for, as I said there in the movie. This means that it doesn't cost anything to clean the atmosphere and avert catastrophic climate change, because you can sell it right now at a price that is higher than the cost of removal. This is similar to the case of petroleum, where the cost of extraction of petroleum is lower than what you can sell it for. Here, the cost of extraction of CO2 from air is lower than what you can sell it for. What can you sell it for? You saw and you heard. I said beverages, but also there is refrigeration, because dry ice is CO2. And McDonald's uses a lot of dry ice to freeze hamburgers, for example. Coca-Cola uses a lot of CO2 for its beverages. In the Middle East, all the water is desalinated, including in Israel. Desalination uses a lot of CO2. As I mentioned before, you can use CO2 to produce carbon fibers, also efficiently and profitably, which means the cost of doing that is lower than the cost of selling it, or the price that you can still sell it for. So although there is a lot of cost saving yet to come, it's already positive in the sense that at this point it doesn't cost anything to clean the atmosphere. in the sense that you can sell what you extract for more money than what it costed you to take it out from the atmosphere. So it remains almost like a puzzle. If that's the case, why are we worried about climate change? Since we can clean the atmosphere and make money while doing it, what's the problem? That's where the movie goes into Abu Dhabi, and you saw the camels, the nice music on the desert, and you saw the people in Abu Dhabi saying to me, this is too good to be true. And that's what I explained, that even though today we already have the technology that is needed to clean the atmosphere and make money at the same time, we have it. And we can avert catastrophic climate change. We're not doing it yet. Why? That's what I explained, that when something is so innovative, so radical, so different from what we have done until now, people simply don't believe it. And you heard there in Abu Dhabi this sheikh telling me, it's too good to be true. So right now, we have a problem which is too bad to be true, which is the global climate change. We have a solution that is too good to be true. And we are oscillating between the two. As far as I'm concerned, what we should be doing is take the ball and run with it. Build power plants that clean the atmosphere. Can we do it? Yes. Where? In the United States. How much does it cost to do it? Well, you got to invest, but then you make money. With everything, it's always like that. You have to invest first, and then it becomes profitable. How much money do you need? Well, and how much CO2 you have to take out? You have to take out, essentially, there are many different scenarios, but a simple one would be, in 15 years, you have to remove all the CO2 that humans emit every year, on an every year basis. So by the end of this year, ideally, we would be taking out 35 gigatons of CO2, which is what we are emitting right now. In that case, right now, if we do that, we will not be contributing any longer to climate change, and we will be cleaning the atmosphere. That's what's had to be done. How much will it cost? As I said, it's not going to cost money, it's going to make money. But even if you want to win the lottery, you have to buy a ticket. So in this case, you need approximately an investment of $200 billion per year for about 15 years. If you make the computation, it gives you $1 trillion over 15, 20 years. But right now, it's $200 billion a year investment, and with that money, you will be making more money in commercial terms. That can be done now. How long does it take to recuperate the money? It takes about 2.5 years. How long does it take to build one of those plants? It takes about 8 to 9 months right now. But what we have demonstrated also is that in 5 years, the cost is going to be half. In 10 years, it's going to be 10%. Right now, the cost per ton is going to be, in our case, about $60. In 5-10 years, it's going to be $10 or even $5 a ton. So this is not going to be a problem. But we need to start right now. If we don't start right now, then the disorganization, the chaos that is already starting to occur due to climate change is going to get the best of us. And good luck to us and to the other species that we share this planet with. So the key thing is to start immediately. We were talking just before this presentation with Will, and we thought what we need is some movement that would essentially take donations to build these plants. That's it. Build plants that remove CO2. And the money that is used for that purpose, for example, we would like to imagine that it could be matched by the state, your wonderful Rhode Island state. So if people would make a donation to build one of these plants, if they build it in the right place, the plant is going to make money. It's going to employ a lot of people. This is very clean and this is very productive technology, industrial technology, that creates a lot of jobs and creates exports. So one of the things we'll be talking about is creating a factory for this type of plants in the state of Rhode Island, okay? And so the materials that you saw there in the plant, the global thermostat plant, could be produced in a factory here. And that's what we're saying. We could try to get donations so that every dollar will be matched, for example, by the state. And it will be for the purposes of building these plants, cleaning the atmosphere, selling the CO2, making money, creating jobs, creating exports. How does that sound to you?
I have a lot more questions, but I'll hold them for another time. It sounds like a good plan.
No, don't hold it. Just, you know, if there is time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes?
Yes, hi. I don't think I need a microphone. My name is Grant.
Sorry?
No, it's not. Hello. So my name is Grant, and my question is, so I understand, and I'll grant you that the technology appears to have the ability to lower the price per ton of production of carbon dioxide from what it's currently at. So that would lead to a market opportunity while carbon dioxide prices remain at what they are. But I think I most likely speak for most people here, certainly myself and those that I know, when I say that the most intriguing application of the technology is not its ability to produce a big profit in the market for carbon dioxide, it's the recapture part of the equation. That is to say, we talk about polymers and other biological processes that can recapture the carbon. But I'm not a chemical engineer, but I do know that it's a pretty tricky bit of chemistry to turn carbon dioxide into carbon nanofibers or into polymers, into the base components that are needed to assemble plastics, which is why they pretty much do it with hydrocarbons now.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
I'm getting to my question. My question is the next sentence, so just bear with me here. My question is, where are the practical applications of the recapture part of the piece? So, apart from a greenhouse which exists on paper or a theoretical carbon nanofiber production facility, what concrete steps do we have to make sure that the carbon, once recaptured from the atmosphere, doesn't get re-emitted but is instead locked up in some chemical process or physical object?
It's not theoretical. It is not theoretical. Greenhouses right now are using CO2 and it gets locked into the plants and it doesn't go back to the atmosphere. Is that clear? So that's already being done now. It's also using CO2 for polymers. It's a process that is already known. Another known process is using CO2, mixing it with hydrogen, and that produces a liquid that is molecule by molecule identical to gasoline. But this gasoline produced from hydrogen and CO2, from water and air. You can produce gasoline from water and air. From the water you take the hydrogen, from the air you take the CO2. Is that theoretical? No, it's not theoretical. It's practical, it's being done. So what other things can you do? As I said, greenhouses are already using CO2. They buy CO2. Coca-Cola buys millions of tons of CO2. Is that theoretical? No. You have companies that are using CO2 to produce polymer. You have other industrial uses of CO2 that will be too complicated to explain here. You can also use CO2 to produce synthetic fuels like gasoline produced from water and air. Is that theoretical? No. The process is well known and is being used. So it is not the case that we are using CO2 as much as we will in the future. But there is a large number of applications. Carbon fibers and polymers are well known. You can use the CO2 also to produce drywall, also known as sheetrock. You can use CO2 in the production of cement. Is that theoretical? No, it's real, it's commercial, it's being done already, in reality. You can use CO2 for a number of other processes. The best known is enhanced oil recovery. So if you look at a company called Occidental Petroleum, you know the company? Every single gallon of petroleum they extract in the state of Texas, Occidental Petroleum, is produced by using CO2. They inject CO2 into the oil fields and acts as a solvent, and out comes enhanced oil recovery that could be 30% more than you could get otherwise from that oil field. That is the application that makes more money right now. We don't do that because we don't think we need to produce more fossil fuels. We want to produce less, not more. So I just gave you a few examples: water desalination, greenhouses, polymers, cement, enhanced oil recovery, synthetic fuels. There is also biofertilizers, which is one of my favorite examples. How does it work? If you give CO2 to algae, you give CO2 to algae, like all plants, they grow faster. If you can use that algae as a biofertilizer. It's a fertilizer that instead of being made with nitrogen, is made biologically by algae. You put that algae in the soil and it fertilizes naturally the soil for 5 years, and it's clean and it's not poisonous like nitrogen can be. So, enhanced oil recovery, carbonated beverages, desalination of water, production of polymers, production of carbon fibers, synthetic fuels, and greenhouses. These are all real examples that are existing right now, commercial examples. The one that I like is carbon fibers, because carbon fibers, as you probably know, can replace all the known metals. For example, can replace steel. Steel is $1 trillion a year market, and every ton or every pound of steel can be replaced by the equivalent amount in carbon fibers. Carbon fibers are cheaper, lighter, less expensive, and stronger than steel. And since the steel market is already $1 trillion a year, the scope for using CO2 to replace steel is enormous, and that CO2 gets embodied in the material, in the carbon fibers, and never goes back into the atmosphere. So I gave you a few examples, but that market that we're talking about, while it exists and is real, is going to grow by a factor of 2, 10, 100. Why? Because right now CO2 is very limited in supply, and there is excess demand for CO2. And as I said before, it's difficult to obtain and extremely difficult to transport and expensive. That's why Occidental Petroleum uses enhanced oil recovery to produce petroleum in Texas, but not in California. Why? Because bringing the CO2 from Texas, where it is now in the natural domes, to California costs $1.5 million per mile for the pipelines to send the CO2, to transport the CO2. Why? CO2 doesn't like to be transported. It's like electricity that way. It's very expensive. What do we do about it? We don't need to transport it, because we can produce CO2 from air, and air is everywhere. And a secret that I haven't told you because nobody asked me is that the air embodies CO2 uniformly across the entire planet. So the concentration of CO2 in this room is going to be the same that it is right now in Beijing or out there in the courtyard. Therefore, wherever you are, you can put one factory that takes, or one plant that takes CO2 from air without needing to transport it. That's our technology. Does anybody else have this technology? There are two companies that are trying to follow. One is in Canada called Carbon Engineering. The other one is in Switzerland. The Swiss company is funded by the Swiss government. The company in Canada called Carbon Engineering is funded by Bill Gates. Their technology is a factor of 10 more costly than ours. Ours is about $60 a ton. They publish articles saying that the costs, their own costs, carbon engineering, climate, are $600 a ton. But you have an industry, you have 3 companies, okay? We may be ahead of the industry, but these things can change, and it doesn't really matter. The key is that this can be done, it is being done. Some are more efficient and cost effective than others, and we are 10 times less costly than the others, and it can be done, and it will suffice to end climate change. How many plants do you need to do that? I say that in the movie, but if you need 35 gigaton per year removed from the air, so if you have a 1 million ton per year plant, which is about the size of what you saw, multiplied by 10, and that would take about 1/3 of an acre to deploy. That plant produces or removes 1 million tons of CO2 per year. And as I mentioned before, that will cost a few $1 million. In reality, it will cost, what I said before, $60, everything considered, per ton of CO2. How many of those plants do you need? You need 35,000 plants, removing 1 million tons each. Then you took care of all the CO2 that humans are putting in the atmosphere, and you are farming the skies to produce more jobs, to produce more economic progress, like IKEA furniture, like greenhouse vegetables that are growing faster and better, like biofertilizers that are not poisonous and improve the productivity of the soil, like desalinated water that is keenly needed right now in the United States, in California, but in other places in the world is used as the only source of water, such as the Middle East. I hope I have said enough to respond to your question. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Maybe I'm talking too much. Yes.
Have the microphone. Thanks.
Your name?
Hello. Donna Personius, I live in Barrington.
Joan?
Donna Personius, I live in Barrington, Rhode Island.
Sorry?
Donna Personius, that's my name. Donna Personius. There you go. My question for you is the cost and the vision.
And the what?
And the vision.
The vision?
The vision for the 3 states that you spoke about and the time frame.
Yeah.
So we've got a cost that's pretty substantial at this point just to have one plant. How do you see this being implemented and what time frame in Rhode Island? You've got a group here that's backing you, that's trying to get 3 states involved with this process. It's great, it's a great idea, but the investment is substantial. So who is your client?
Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Is that enough for you?
Are you, Coca-Cola doesn't, are they in Rhode Island?
What?
is Coca-Cola in Rhode Island in a manner
Coca-Cola has 1,000 bottlers all over the world and in every state.
I want to go beyond that. Are you looking for municipalities to participate? Or are you looking for companies to buy into bringing one of these plants to their facilities? Do you understand what I'm asking?
The Tri-State Climate Coalition, our vision is for our group, and what Rossi Allah is speaking about is what Global Thermostat is doing, which fits within our larger vision, which is why we set up this event, so that folks can start seeing the parts of what would be needed to achieve our vision. Does that help? It's kind of two separate things.
So this is part of the educational process?
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, because people, as far as I can tell, there's not a lot of knowledge about carbon capture or hard facts about carbon capture available and easily accessible. And so this event is a chance to find out about carbon capture and to ask questions about it and find out how it works and to get those facts about what the technology is and what it can do and how it fits in the world.
I think I'm looking at the next step already and saying how do we implement it realistically? How do we implement, or how do we bring one of those factories to Rhode Island and be able to afford it?
How do we bring one of those plants to Rhode Island?
Right.
Okay.
Financially.
But first of all, let's talk about numbers. We can produce a tiny little plant like that. I can put it here. And it is like a dehumidifier, but instead of taking water from air, it takes CO2 from air. So you put it here, it will go chuku 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 chuku, and it will clean all the air here of CO2. And you will have, at the end of the day, you will have pure CO2 coming out. And then what do you do with the CO2? You sell it. You sell it for all the purposes I mentioned before. That's the general idea. What is the minimum amount of money you need to do something like that? Realistically, to do something commercial, you will need about $1 million, absolutely minimum. Okay? Probably more like 1.5 million. But that is 1,000 times less than what Mitsubishi charges for a plant that is used for carbon capture and sequestration, which is $1 billion. So this is a breakthrough. The cost is really low.
I don't disagree. I'm just trying to apply that to Rhode Island.
So let me explain what we're thinking of, because I had the same discussion with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, national senator for Rhode Island, and a champion, as far as I know, for this type of causes. So there are there are many ways, and you may come up with a different way. I don't know. The technology is really a technology platform. We have 33 patents of all sorts, and we have many things you can do. Let me give you 3 examples. Okay? Example 1. If Coca-Cola had a bottler in this area, that bottler is buying CO2 today. They need to. They are not going to be able to bottle Coca-Cola without buying CO2. So we can send them a little global thermostat plant that cleans the atmosphere and gives Coca-Cola the bubbles that it needs to bottle the CO2s. That's one example. How much would that cost? As I said, somewhere $1–2 million, and it will produce thousands of tons of CO2 per year and all the bubbles that the Coca-Cola bottler may need. The bottler may be here, or it may be in the tri-state area, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Okay? That's one example. Let's look at another example that Senator Whitehouse found particularly interesting. When you build one of these plants, you need engineering. You need to create what you saw there. Okay? So somebody has to create equipment. And that somebody is called a factory, or can be called a factory. What would that factory do? It will produce global thermostat plants like that. I don't personally produce them. Right now we're building commercial plants in Huntsville, Alabama. The place called Streamline Engineering, okay? That is a factory of CO2 plants, CO2 capture plants. It's a factory of global thermostat plants. Instead of putting that factory in Huntsville, Alabama, where it is now, we could put it in Providence, Rhode Island. And you say, a factory, is it going to be noxious for the environment? No, it's clean. How long does it take to get a permit? 1 week. Very, very mild. Doesn't have anything poisonous coming out of it. And the heat is very low, 85 centigrade, which is less than what it takes to boil a cup of tea. So something that was considered with Senator Whitehouse is what it would mean to build a factory to produce this type of plants in Rhode Island. In this case, the client is not here. Here is the building of the plants. The client may be in New York City or Washington, D.C., wherever, but the plants are built here. Let me continue. The production of a plant has more or less two different parts. One part is physical, is the equipment that you saw here, which is very nice looking, it's just machinery, okay? That can be produced, as I said here, but there is another part I didn't talk about, which is the chemical heart, which is the part of the equipment that Peter Eisenberger and I were showing. Remember those monoliths? Right now they are produced by firms like Corning. Where does Corning produce those? Upstate New York. Well, they could be produced here. It needs, for a factory of that nature, you would need to make a deal with us, with Corning. We can bring the factory here, we'll produce those type of monoliths right here. And so that's different than the whole building. Is the chemical heart, is the part that does the absorption. Is there anything else? Yes. That monolith is coated with a so-called sorbent. Like Peter Eisenberger said, it has natural affinity for CO2. Doesn't take out oxygen, doesn't take out nitrogen from the air. It takes CO2. That's called a sorbent and is proprietary to us. And it has very specific characteristics that make it very useful, very productive, and very low cost. We can produce that here. That's a chemical. So we can produce chemicals here, the solvents. We can produce monoliths here that are made of ceramic generally, and that's what Corning is doing in upstate New York. We can do the machinery, which is what is now being done in Huntsville, Alabama for our commercial plant. And all of these pieces, okay, are, if you wish, the supply chain that go into producing this type of equipment. And that is to sell the plants. It's not to buy the plants. But if you have clients here, they will buy the plants. And that's the example I gave you. If you have a beverage producer here that is doing, let's say that you have a producer of beer. They use CO2. They don't use a lot of CO2, but they need CO2. If they are here in Rhode Island, they would be buying our CO2. We can sell them a piece of equipment that they can have in their facilities, and it will be cranking chuku, 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 and they will get all the CO2 they need. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. So,
I was just trying to understand the applications locally.
Sorry?
I was trying to understand the applications locally, and I think you spelled it out. I get it.
You got it? Yes. Are we through? Oh, one more question.
Yeah, we're passing.
I think I have after that the possibility of signing some books, Saving Kyoto, and I want you to know that it has 2 awards. The Outstanding Academic Title of the Year by the American Library Association, and the Book of the Month Award by the American Geographical Society. And this is it, and it appears also in the movie, and there is a few copies there that we can sell you and sign. Yes, your question.
Hi.
Say your first name again.
My name is Evan. I'm
Evan, yes, Evan.
from New York. So you mentioned the profit motive being a primary factor because maybe governments can't be relied upon to provide the kind of investment in this technology. So there's like that profit motive piece. So I'm wondering, so suppose that Global Thermostat is able to produce plants to the scale that you described. Was it 32,000 plants each generating 1 million or capturing 1 million tons per unit of time per year? Or
32 gigaton a year.
okay.
If you have 32,000 tons, each producing 1 million tons of CO2 per year.
Okay, so suppose that happens. So with this like supply and demand, would there be a point at which the carbon becomes so abundant that the value decreases, which then decreases the profit motive?
Well, I wish that was the problem, because that would mean producing a lot, taking a lot from the air very quickly, which will improve the climate immediately. I wish that was our problem. Not to sell the CO2, but we can take it out. Unfortunately, it's not the problem. Right now, there is a very hungry market for CO2. As I said before, there is articles published, I can give you one, that say that CO2 is a market that is flooded by demand, okay, because there is a huge demand for CO2. The question there, I'm going to translate your question, is to say, what market segment can absorb all the CO2 that we have now in the atmosphere that we have to remove? So I already said that in another way, it's difficult to communicate in a way, and it is carbon fibers. Because carbon fibers can substitute for every metal, more or less. And as I mentioned, just aluminum and steel would suffice to take all the CO2 that we have emitted. That market is huge. The reason it's huge, it's not so huge in the United States, but it's huge in China and India. They are building a lot of roads and buildings, and they need cement, they need carbon fibers to substitute the steel and use for buildings. Is that already happening? Yes. I mean, in fact, all the boats that you know use no metal. They use carbon fibers. You know that. Do you know anybody who has a boat?
I'm from Texas originally, so.
Anyway, just find yourself somebody who owns a boat. Ask them, what is your boat made of? Anybody has a boat? Guys, Rhode Island is on the ocean. What's wrong with you?
So 100% of the carbon that can be captured, so you're saying that 100% of the carbon that can be captured can find a home and be sold at a profit, you know? Yes,
not today. Today, I would say about, at best, 1/3. But the market is increasing very quickly because the CO2 fiber, the carbon fibers, can substitute for all metals, which means we don't need to extract iron ore to produce steel. We just use carbon fibers, etc., etc. Right now, you wouldn't do that. Why? Because there isn't enough CO2 to do that. But if there was enough CO2, you could substitute all the aluminum, it will be made of CO2. All the steel, it will be substituted by carbon fibers made of CO2. All the nitrogen fertilizers, which are very poisonous and are poisoning our water and our food in the Midwest lakes, okay, could be replaced by biofertilizers produced from CO2 and algae that are used for that purposes. I can go on and on and on. So this is possible, but it's still a growing market. But we don't need to worry about that, because the market that exists today will buy all the CO2 that you want for the next 5 or 10 years, because there is excess demand for CO2. And when we need a larger market, that will be expanding as you make the CO2 available, because right now there isn't enough CO2 available, so people are not using CO2. What I'm saying is that the CO2 economy is the substitute of the petroleum economy. The movie illustrates how petroleum that is taken for free from under the earth has changed industrial society. Well, this is CO2 that replaces petroleum. Everything you can make with petroleum, you can make with CO2. It's the carbon molecule at heart. And the CO2 comes from the air for free. The same way that petroleum comes from the soil for free. And it will lead to the same industrial growth. The only difference, okay, and this is a very important difference, and I don't want to get speculative here, is the following. Petroleum is not uniformly distributed in the soil of the planet. It is preferentially located in certain areas. And that has led, as Natasha, as my daughter knows very well, to enormous geopolitical problems. Okay? Well, CO2 is uniformly distributed. I'm making a pause for effect. That means that instead of having geopolitical problems, you will have a global equalizer. Everybody will have same access to CO2. You're taking the CO2 from air. Do you follow me? That in itself is huge. So we will not be subject to the same violence and destructivity that is connected with the differential location of petroleum on the soil of the planet. Don't underestimate what I just said.
And one last follow-up, if I can.
Yes,
is, how much does it currently cost to convert 1 ton of CO2 into carbon fiber, specifically?
I wish I could give you a number. That is a very important question. I cannot give you a number right now. It's not something I work on. We are working on taking the CO2 from the atmosphere, but what you ask is extremely important, and you should look into that and let me know. I'll be interested.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If we can, we'd like to take one more question, and then if you'd like to talk to Rossi Allah, she's here to speak with. If you'd like to buy one of her books, you can see me at that table on the far side of the stage, and she will sign the book for you. I also have business cards for Rossi Allah if you would like to be in touch with her about things that you've heard this evening.
Business cards, yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to say something about the book. The book is not about this technology. I mean, it mentions this technology. The book is about the creation of the carbon market of the Kyoto Protocol. Now you say, the carbon market, what? China has adopted the national carbon market. And the largest and most populous state in the United States, California, 1 out of 10 people in the US is in California, has a carbon market. Well, I was the creator of that market, and that's what the book is about. It explains how that happened and the whole intrigue behind the United Nations in my role of the lead author of the IPCC representing the United States at the United Nations.
I have a question.
If you don't mind, you could ask her in person afterwards. Absolutely. If we can take just one more in the
One more question?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Lisa from Richmond.
What's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa.
And actually, I kind of have a few questions, but I guess the most important one is, do you see this as a substitute for, as a substitute for phasing out fossil fuels or an adjunct to it? And if it's the latter, how do you guarantee that it's not going to become a substitute for fossil fuels? And in fact, doesn't your industry and this growing market for carbon dioxide create an incentive for continuing to burn fossil fuels?
Lisa is asking an important question that has occurred to many. The question is, It's called in economics. Any economist here? The question is whether there is a so-called moral hazard. Economists call moral hazard the following problem. If you buy insurance, are you going to be more careless? Are you going to throw the matches in your house because your house has insurance? That's called moral hazard. Okay, the fact that in this case, if you have a way to get rid of CO2 by removing it, are we going to become more careless? Are we going to continue to use fossil fuels? Or will this give a way to go to the definitive solution, which is stop using fossil fuels and use clean energy? Okay? That's the question she's asking. She's saying yes. Okay. She's right. This is a very important question. Now let me tell you something. You cannot reach a solution without changing the current dirty energy or fossil fuel energy to clean energy, which essentially has to be solar. I say has to be solar. In certain cases you can use hydroelectric energy and you can use eolic energy, which is the windmills. But on the whole, neither of those two has the scope needed to replace fossil fuel. But the sun does. In fact, fossil fuel energy is sun energy over millions of years in preparation. We can use the sun energy immediately. That's solar power. And that comes in two forms at least. One of them is photovoltaic, which, as I mentioned, has been basically recreated by the Chinese at very low cost. And now is taking on by fire the United States. I can talk about that. The other one is called concentrated solar power. And either of them is highly compatible with our technology. How so? Let me explain. Right now, a concentrated solar power plant can produce a lot of energy, and is competitive with fossil fuels. Okay? Are we going to be replacing or some way undermining the replacement of fossil fuel power plants by solar plants? No, on the contrary. The problem with concentrated solar power plants is that the cost of capital, they are huge and they require a lot of capital to get started. So you want anything that decreases the cost. Well, remember how our technology works. It doesn't use electricity, minimally. It uses heat. Concentrated solar power and photovoltaic or eolic energy or hydro produce heat. And therefore, if we locate one of our plants next to a solar plant, the residual heat from the solar plant powers ours. And therefore, the combination of the two is what's called a carbon negative power plant. What's that? I invented that, the word carbon negative. What is carbon negative power plant? A carbon negative power plant is a plant that produces electricity, but instead of emitting CO2, it cleans the CO2 from the atmosphere. It reduces the CO2 in the atmosphere. How could it be? I have articles about that. And more than articles, we have a plant. The plant that I mentioned to you in Silicon Valley is a carbon negative plant. Why? Because the SRI, Stanford Research Institute, has a power plant there. That power plant produces heat and emits CO2. We take out the CO2, and in addition, with the additional heat, we take more CO2 from the atmosphere. The combination of those two is producing electricity that cleans the atmosphere. That's called a carbon negative power plant. I invented that. That is what we need. Why? Listen to this carefully. And it's an answer to Lisa. But Lisa's question has a lot of legs, so I'm only going to answer this, okay? What is the necessary and sufficient condition to end climate change? To avert catastrophic climate change? In other words, what's a condition that is needed without which you cannot fix climate change and is sufficient with which you will solve climate change. If you're any mathematician here, I feel very lonely. I'm a mathematician and an economist. Well, at least there is one mathematician. This is a necessary and sufficient condition, what I'm going to say now. Transforming every power plant in the planet into a carbon negative power plant. What am I talking about? Listen. If you look at the composition of the CO2 that we emit, the largest source of CO2 that humans emit, by far, is power plants. That's why it's so perverse that people are shifting to electric cars. Because electric cars are using electricity, which is the biggest source of emissions. Even though the car doesn't produce emissions, the electricity that runs the car is the biggest source of emission. How big? 45%. Well, give me by comparison the transportation system in the world. How much CO2 it emits? 18. So if we fix the transportation system, we don't fix climate change. It's too small. If we fix the power plant system, yes, it's a necessary and sufficient condition. So if you want to think of it this way, you take the worst emitters, which are the power plants that produce power, electricity, and you make them, by using this technology, into sinks or carbon negative power plants. You take the worst emitters and you make them in the best friends of the environment. You are taking the problem and you are turning it on its head. So I propose we transform every power plant in the planet into a carbon negative power plant, particularly in China, which is one of the biggest offenders because of the power plants. If we do that, we will have solved climate change, and we can do it already now. So that goes some ways to answering Lisa's question, but the key thing is that because of this relationship where our technology uses heat, and because emitters of CO2 or industrial facilities that emit residual heat that doesn't cost anything, there is a very natural affinity between the emitters of CO2 and the sources of power for our technology. Therefore, we make a solar plant more efficient, lower cost, and carbon negative. That's why, instead of being in competition with the new forms of clean energy, this enhances and accelerates the adoption of clean energy. Am I clear here?
Yes, but what about wind energy? Is it in any way symbiotic with wind?
Is what?
Is that wind energy is
I don't understand. Oh, wind energy.
Source.
Yeah, what about wind energy?
For the future. Is this system compatible with wind or only with
I repeat, I already said that before. Wind energy is used to produce electricity. Yes? Electricity produces heat. We use that heat to run our system. So if I have a windmill here, it will produce the energy I need to run carbon negative installments that remove CO2 from the atmosphere.
Okay, but unlike with solar, you won't just be taking extra heat, you'll be decreasing the amount of electricity.
You can either use heat, you can use heat, which is the best way, from solar, for example, or you can use electricity and transform it into heat, which is what you can get from windmills.
Also, with the enhanced oil recovery, which I noticed was
yes,
on your
enhanced oil recovery, we don't do that.
But are you guaranteeing that you never will do that, given that there's a big market?
I don't understand.
What? Given that there is a substantial market for enhanced oil recovery, and that you are a for-profit company, right? So is there any guarantee that you never will be involved in selling your product for enhanced oil recovery?
Well, first of all, never say never. Okay, like James Bond. never say never. But we will not do it. Don't forget, somebody can try to do it on their own and we cannot stop them. But we're not going to do it. Why? I'm going to tell you, I don't believe that the fuel market is a good market for a company like ours. Because the fuel market is a very volatile market. Where did I get that idea? Talk with any investment advisor. They will tell you, investing in Exxon now is like investing in the lottery. It's very risky. You don't know risk. It may go up, it may go down, okay? So for a small company like us, we prefer a stable market, and therefore we don't want to get involved with fuel markets. Is that clear?
But it is on your website. Is that an error, or why is it listed there as one of the major...
What error?
Enhanced oil recovery.
Enhanced oil recovery is indeed a huge application of CO2. No error. In fact, it's the largest. And I already said, if you look at companies like Occidental Petroleum, all the CO2 that they obtain, they extract from Texas, is obtained by enhanced oil recovery. It's a huge business. There is no mistake. There is no error. I don't understand.
Well, if you're saying your product isn't, you don't do that, why is it on your website?
Because we show the uses of CO2 currently, whether we do it or not. This is a very important use of CO2 currently. If I didn't show it in the website, I would be lying to you. People ask, what do you use CO2 for currently? The biggest use of CO2 currently is enhanced oil recovery. That's why we list it in our website. But our website doesn't say that we do that, does it?
Probably not.
Good.